easy enough to obtain a gun in our country. Some advocates are pushing to allow Americans to simply print them at home. All it would take would be an online blueprint and a 3D printer. So-called 3D printed guns wouldn't have serial numbers, making it almost impossible for law enforcement to track them down. And because they could be made entirely out of plastic, they could bypass metal detectors. Well, yesterday, a federal judge in Seattle issued a temporary restraining order to block the release of 3D printed gun blueprints online. President Trump weighed in yesterday saying 3D plastic guns don't seem to make much sense. And here was White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders today.
The president is glad this effort was delayed to give more time to review the issue, and this administration supports the decades-old legislation already on the books that prohibits the ownership of a wholly plastic gun.
Well, joining me right now is the former U.S. Congressman from New York and author of the novel Big Guns, Steve Israel. Steve, thank you so much for coming on. I don't know, it's like we've got crazy people out looking for the craziest ideas. Of all the problems we have Saturday night special, cheap guns you can buy for a few bucks out of a trunk of somebody's car or in a hotel room or one of these gun shows. It's not hard to get a gun in America, I'm told. Why would you want to have these guns you can make yourself with this 3D equipment, which apparently only is several $100s? Your thoughts?
Well, the only reason you would want these guns is to get them through a metal detector undetected, or to have a gun that cannot be traced, or to have a gun where there's no background check. Those are the only reasons for these guns. Look, this administration, Chris, they do dangerous things, they do crazy things. This is dangerously crazy. They allowed a company to distribute the codes, the software, so that anybody with a 3D printer using the same plastic that's in a Lego could make a lethal firearm, get it onto an airplane, get it into the Capitol, and cause grave harm to people. This administration has upended 30 years of bipartisan policy from Reagan to Obama by trying to allow this to happen. Now, the good news is a judge, as you just said, a judge has put a temporary restraining order, so it has continued the ban on the download of these files. But the bad news is that already hundreds, if not thousands, of these files have been downloaded, and these guns can now be manufactured with these 3D printers.
Well, I've seen a movie, and I know you've seen it in The Line of Fire. It's a great Clint Eastwood movie. I know you're a movie guy.
Yes, sir.
John Malkovich is the bad guy. It's very elaborate. It was a procedural. You actually watch him put it together, a plastic gun, so he can get through the metal detector at a presidential fundraiser. Why do we want to have the technology available for John Malkoviches of the world to do what they want to do?
We don't.
Know what that is.
Ronald Reagan, in 1988, Ronald Reagan recognized that we shouldn't make it easy for people to manufacture guns that could go through metal detectors or not be traceable. And that policy was continued by George Bush, George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama. Now we have the Trump administration, which settled a lawsuit and decided we should actually make it easier for a child, a criminal, or a terrorist to make these guns, get it right through a metal detector, cause harm, and the gun's not even traceable.
Well, the National Rifle Association released a statement saying the issue is being overblown. Quote, many anti-gun politicians and members of the media have wrongly claimed that 3D printing technology will allow for the production and widespread proliferation of undetectable plastic firearms. Regardless of what a person may be able to publish on the internet, undetectable plastic guns have been illegal for 30 years. Explain how they're cagey here.
Well, they're very cagey. First of all, it is true that the Undetectable Firearms Act, originally signed by Ronald Reagan, makes the manufacture, distribution, production of these weapons illegal. But here's the thing. You can't enforce the law if you can't see a weapon that is plastic. And so this is a very clever way for the NRA and other gun fanatics to say, well, we've already got a law on the books, but we're going to handcuff TSA agents, we're going to handcuff the police, we're going to handcuff law enforcement so they cannot detect when a gun is right in front of them, despite the fact that there's a law on the books.
Well, they say that as long as it has a metal piece to it, but according to what I've been able to read, that metal piece can be removed and it can still go through a metal detector and it would still fire.
Well, that's exactly right. Two things here, Chris. Number one, a metal piece can be snapped off and snapped back on. So you can snap it off before you go through the metal detector and snap it back on when you get on the airplane. Number two, the Undetectable Firearms Act, when that was passed in 1988, the notion of 3D printers was like a Star Trek episode. It needs to be modernized, and the way you modernize it is you simply require that various components of the firearm must have some metal permanently attached to them. I tried to get that passed when I was in Congress. The NRA adamantly opposed it. We were able to extend the Undetectable Firearms Act.
Well, why would they defend, in effect, why are they defending plastic guns, in effect, that don't need these metal pieces so they can still fire a bullet? Why do they want to defend the reality of such a thing?
Because they are extremists, and they are extremists, and they are absolutists, and you know, they are going to continue to have these extreme views. By the way, President Trump, you mentioned, tweeted that, you know, these plastic guns don't make sense, and he was looking into it. And in that tweet, he said, "I'm checking with the NRA." I tweeted back at him, reminding him that he has veto power, not the NRA. Why he would want to check with the NRA to see if it was okay to continue to make it safer for us to get on planes.
He's pandering to the gun guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Which
You know what
I don't mind pandering, but I don't mind pandering, but when it's dangerous, that's when we should all be objecting.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.